Hi everyone. Today is Friday, April 12th, 2019. My name is Brian McInerney, and I'm the hydrologist with the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Salt Lake City, Utah. This is the longer, more technical version of the Utah water outlook for this month. So what do you say we get to it here? So when you look right off the bat, as far as precip went in March, this is what you see, and it's all good. Areas of cooler colors indicate above average precipitation for Utah. There are areas of purple colors that are 200 to 300%, while that navy color is 150 to 200% of average, which covers most of the state. So March was fabulous, especially after some of the record-breaking numbers we saw in February. But when you put it all together, from the beginning of the water year to the end of March, this is what the picture looks like, widespread. And I think the first thing that jumps out at me is the whole state is above average. And it gets better the farther south you go. And in the areas where most of the people live, up farther north, they received about 110 to 130% precipitation. And then if you move farther south, 130 to 150%. And then down in some of the corners, they had 150 to 200% precip throughout the year. And then when it's in the mountains where it's going to come out, where it counts, this is what the picture looks like. Again, excellent water supply numbers as far as precip goes. You know, we're isolating just one variable, but this is a big one, and this is the one that counts in a big way. When you're done with March, we're running into April, and that's when the snowpack gets the biggest. This is what we see for snowpack, or not snowpack, but precip numbers. We'll get to snowpack in a bit. What do you say we get to snowpack now? So this is what it looks like. And what I did was I compared some of these graphs to other years. So just to reacquaint you with how this graphic works, it's a little bit busier than what I've had in the past, because really sometimes in the past it hadn't amounted much to anything. So you just throw in what was the year before and then the current year, because all of these were low numbers. Well, now we've got some pretty big numbers. And I asked when I put this graph together, give me some of the biggest numbers that we've had, the biggest years in snowpack in these basins. Snow water equivalent is on the y-axis, time is on the x-axis, and this is for the Bear River drainage itself. So the SNOTEL stations that are located in the Bear drainage and really throughout the rest of the state, but grouped in the drainage basins, that's what we're looking at. And the Bear is at 126% of median. The closest year to that is 2005, that aqua color, but you see 2011 was much bigger in the Bear at this time back then. But still, the green is the average from 1981 to 2010, and we're doing quite well actually across the Bear. When you look at the Weber, 130% of median, closest to 2005, not close to 2011, and yet much above average over that time. When you drop down into Six Creeks, numbers start getting healthier, and that's what you see across the state. 144% of median, close to 2005, but also creeping up on 2011. And if you look at the big years we had, they melted out roughly about a month late, and we're on course for a very active pattern through the third week of April as far as the weather forecast goes. This could extend farther because we really don't see a pattern shift. So we could be in that territory. It's kind of a wait and see mode right now. Down in Utah Lake, getting bigger even still, 168% of median. Better than 2005, getting close to 2011. Again, 2011 peaked about a month later, and we're on track for something similar to that. Duchesne at 147% of median. Close, but not very close to some of the bigger years. But if we keep going, we could see 2011 and 2005 numbers on the Duchesne. going up to the green, and that's when you see the farther north you went where the storms didn't really materialize. We had a lot of southwest flow, which doesn't reach this far. We're at 100% of median, a little bit below average, close to 2005, but not even close to 2011. Down in the price, we're at 150% of median, right at 2011 and above 2005. So, the price could have some really large runoff this year. Down in Lake Powell, and this is a kind of a smaller sample size from all of the snow tails in the Lake Powell drainage when you think of how big that drainage is. This is a lot of Colorado. 127% of median, above 2005, close to 2011, and we'll take that. And then sliding over in the Sevier, what you find is the snow is already rolled over probably about 3 weeks to a month ago, and it's been on a steady decline. They had a brief pickup, but the Sevier started melting a little prematurely, not even close to 2005, and maybe sort of close to 2011. And then we'll slide over to the Virgin, and you see 2005 is quite large compared to 2011 and where we are, which is already rolled over about a month ago. So you see southern Utah, a lot of the snowpack is already ripened and is melted off on its way. There's still a sizable snowpack left, but the lower elevations are starting to orderly melt a little bit ahead of schedule. And really not so much for southern Utah. If you look at that average line, it's right about on track for what you would expect for it to melt out. I think it's just early compared to the northern basins when they typically melt out. But, the Sevier and the Virgin, this is excellent news for them with this amount of snowpack. When you look at temperature, and this has been critical this year, March was colder than average by roughly, anywhere from 1 to 3 degrees, closer, maybe 3 to 5 in some of the areas out east, as really most of the country was cold. And when you take that January through March, you see the same thing. And so not only did we get the precipitation, but it stayed cold, which has been rare lately. And that cold temperatures has kept the snowpack at the lower elevations. It hasn't pre-ripened the mid elevations. And really we have a quite sizable large high elevation snowpack. So let's take a look at water supply. And what we'll do is we'll look at a couple of points. If you've been here before, you kind of know how this goes. Woodruff Narrows Reservoir and Stewart Dam. We'll start with those two. Woodruff Narrows Reservoir is forecasted, and this is the forecast coming from the Colorado Basin River Forecast Center, part of the National Weather Service. And they're calling for this point to be at 100% average, 110% median. And a bit of explanation on this graph if you haven't seen this before. The volume of water is on the y-axis in thousands of acre feet. Those top and bottom dash lines are the maximum and the minimum we've ever seen for this point. And then the two in the middle, the one dashed and the one solid, is the median and the average. Median's the dash line, average is the solid line. And then each month is when the CBRC made the forecast, and that's the official forecast. And then that little squiggly blue line in the middle is the actual ESP model that they run every day. And it gives you a trend of where this has been going. And we'll use this graphic for the rest of this presentation. When you look at Stewart Dam, 80% average, 125% median. And those numbers are really quite healthy. Then we drop down to the Weber. We'll start at the headwater at Oakley. We'll then move to East Canyon. And then we'll move to Pineview. And with Oakley, 110% average, 112% median, very healthy. And when you look at East Canyon, 144% average, 150% median, but you see a really good increase in the forecast numbers since January due to that very cold, wet systems we've had through January, February, and now March. That's just added to the snowpack and increased the forecast up to this point. And then when you see Pineview, 163% average, 188% median. And you think with the snowpack that we've got, these numbers should be a little higher across the board. And it has to do with dry soils. We are underlaid by some very dry soils due to the hot year we had last summer, and the dry year we had before. But doesn't seem to be holding back too much. Six Creeks, we'll look at Little Cottonwood, and then we'll look at City Creek. Little Cottonwood at 124% average, 134% median. And then City Creek at 108% average, 141% median. Very healthy numbers. We'll take that. Sliding down into Utah Lake, we'll look at 2 points. The Provo River near Woodland, up there, up in the headwaters coming out of the Uintas. And then Spanish Fork near Castilla. And what we'll do is look at Woodland at 122% average, 121% median. And that's good news. Spanish Fork especially, 158% average, 232% median. And this is the best numbers I've seen on the Spanish Fork for really quite some time. For whatever reason, the storms missed Spanish Fork Canyon and left that area a little dry over the years. And now moving down to the south aspect of the Uintas, on the Duchesne, Strawberry, and then we'll look at Tabiona on the Duchesne, and then Knight's Diversion on the Duchesne also. So we'll start with Strawberry near Soldier Springs, and that forecast is to be 135% average, 200% median, right around 90,000 acre feet. And then the Duchesne near Tabiona, 120% average, 138% median, roughly about 130,000 acre feet. And then Knight's Diversion at 230,000 acre feet, roughly 119% average, 133% median. So the Duchesne on the west side is doing excellent. If you go farther east, it tapers off pretty significant. They just didn't get the storms. They didn't get the snow out in that area. But the central and western Duchesne did really quite well this year. And then you move to the Price, and this is an area that's doing exceptional. And we'll start with Schofield, and then Joe's Valley, and Schofield at 166% average, 194% median. 194% median. We're looking at probably somewhere in the range of 68,000 acre feet. This could go higher if this weather continues with cold, wet conditions. Exceptional. Sealy Creek, Joe's Valley, 134% average, 163% median at 75,000 acre feet. And then the Upper Green, which is not as good as it has been in years past comparatively to Utah. We'll look at Green River and then inflow into Flaming Gorge. And this is Green River at 89% average, 103% median, 650,000 acre feet. And then Flaming Gorge Reservoir, 830,000 acre feet at 85% average, 100% median. So good numbers, but not these giant numbers we're seeing the rest. And then when you slide down Lake Powell, look at Cisco as it crosses from Colorado into Utah, and then Lake Powell. And what you find is Cisco has about 5.7 million acre feet forecasted, with a percentage of 130% and 147% median. And then Lake Powell itself, 9.2 million acre feet at 128% of average and 142% median. We'll take that. They always could use more down on Lake Powell. And then the Sevier, we'll start with Hatch, go up downstream to Paiute Reservoir. The Hatch at 68,000 acre feet, 142% average, 189% median. And then Paiute Reservoir inflow at 182% average, 251% median. Big spread between average and median, just due to some of the outlying numbers, some of the bigger events. But nonetheless, 118,000 acre feet anticipated into Paiute Reservoir. And then we'll finish up here with the Virgin. We'll look at the Virgin itself in the headwater areas, and then at Littlefield. And what we find is there's expected to be on the Virgin at 70,000 acre feet at 121% average, 171% median, with that figure. And then at the outlet at Littlefield, 118% average, 203% median, and that's 77,000 acre feet. So really, when you look at it graphically, this is what you see. And there's no warm colors in this graphic whatsoever. There's not even yellow colorization. It's looking quite good. Let's slide down now to our drought designation. And this is what we saw last month. And the drought designations have been easing away since last fall. And at that point, some of the largest drought designations were in the southeast corner of Utah and the Four Corners area. That was March. This is now. Pretty good. Most of the state is drought free, with the exception of some areas that have abnormally dry in the north and maybe a few scattered areas of moderate drought. And it's anticipated that these will even go farther away at this point. So there you have it. Some pretty optimistic news, finally, for the state of Utah with regard to water supply. Here's my contact info. If I can do anything for you, let me know. There's my phone, my email. And most likely we'll do another one of these next month as our weather continues to be cold and wet. And we're looking good. So with that news, this is Brian McInerney. I do appreciate taking the time to listen to this, and we'll go from there. Thanks again.